Jim, what's your given name?
James.
James. What's your full name?
James Ray
James Ray
Martin.
Where were you born?
Indiana, Kokomo, Indiana.
Kokomo, Indiana. Do you live there a long time or just
no.
very short?
Yeah, when I was born, I was very young, so I don't remember much.
You were very young.
Yeah, I was born in '46. But I remember we moved around a lot.
Yeah.
He was in the Navy, and he worked for what was then North American Aviation.
Yeah.
So we ended up in Columbus, Ohio, and we moved around 3 or 4 locations in the Columbus area.
Right.
Then he died, and we eventually ended up in Oklahoma.
Oh, wow.
He was 8 I was 8 when he died.
Right.
So I didn't have much of a late childhood. Because, then we had a single mother. There was a lot of stress and strain, and there were Christmases where we didn't have anything, and I can remember at one time we didn't have any food. So I can remember when she worked at what was then a Big Bear grocery store as a cashier, trying to make ends meet and keep the house. And I can remember one time having dried dog food and rock salt for lunch. She was at work.
Right, so you were
I was
scavenging.
the only one there, yeah.
Wow. Dried dog food and rock salt.
It wasn't bad. Back then, everyone rode a bicycle, so
Okay.
That was my mode of transportation, was a bicycle. World War II was still fresh in everyone's mind. This was the early 50s.
Right.
Korean War was still going. There was a lot of patriotism and patriotic feelings and pride in the military and all that sort of thing. So that carried me through till I was out of high school when, first thing in my mind was to join a military unit. My mother remarried when I was 14. So for those 6 fatherless years, I think I missed out on a lot of guidance that I should have had, and I think that explains a lot of that carried through along with the patriotism that carried through for the rest of my life. Even to this day, I think there's still some things will happen even today that I'm thinking, well, if he had been there during that, would I have behaved differently?
Well, what was it like to realize and look around that you're suddenly the man in the household, and you gotta suddenly step up? Was it tough for you to go through that phase?
I wasn't ready.
Yeah. Yeah.
8 years old, you're not ready.
Yeah.
Like I say, we didn't have much. Even after she married, they never had any money. He couldn't hold a job. I went to work when I was 14.
Oh, wow.
Working at a gas station. Out of necessity. I had to do things that other kids didn't.
Tell me about patriotism. You chalk that up as something that's important to you, and you readily joined the military. Tell me about that decision and that choice. I mean, there was a time where you pretty much knew you were going to go fight a war somewhere.
Yeah, that was always, the kids, when I was a kid, we were always playing war, and cowboys and Indians and Germans and Americans and that sort of thing.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, that was always a pastime, we'll call it, back in those days, which you don't have today.
Right.
But that was a pastime, and I was very comfortable when I was in high school with the thought that I was going to go in the military. Vietnam was when I was in high school, we'd never heard of it. But in my last year, you started hearing about, up until that point, it was French Indochina.
Right.
And you heard about French Indochina, this and that. And when I went into the military, I really hadn't heard of Vietnam. It really wasn't in my conscious. I knew what Indochina was, but I didn't know what Vietnam was.
Really?
64.
Oh, wow, okay.
I was 17.
Oh. Did your mama have to sign for you?
Yep. Yeah. And she had 4 kids. They really didn't need me around the house, you know, so she was happy to see me go. Well, not really, but she wasn't against it, let's put it that way.
Right.
So I went in when I was 17, and of course, as soon as I got in, we started hearing about Vietnam. In a lot of ways, during my years in the military, I was only in 4 years. I was in, even though I wasn't in Vietnam at the time, I was involved with Vietnam. But I was involved in things going on in Vietnam, even though I wasn't directly there.
Right.
So 68 came along, and I was looking at getting out of the Army at the time. And they came down with our group, what they call a block allocation. You know, they're taking all of us.
Right.
Well, since I was in my last year, my name wasn't on it.
Right.
So a lot of our group were married. So there was a lot of weeping and wailing and gnashing of teeth
Right.
with all the married men and their wives. So I just said, okay, I want to go, you don't. Who wants me to take their place? So I volunteered.
Right. Right. And so where did you end up going? Did you end up extending and going for a deployment somewhere?
Well, I was actually in long enough to go.
Okay, good.
You know, I wasn't on the original allocation, but I was
Right.
in long enough.
Okay.
So I ended up in Benoit, which was east of Saigon, northeast of Saigon, somewhere in there.
Right.
And served out the remainder of my time there in Vietnam.
What was it like learning Morse code and going through all that training and stuff? Did you find that easy?
The way they did it, it was easy. They started out at 5 words a minute. A word is 4 letters.
Right.
That's how they rate it. So we started out at 5 words a minute. And over about a 3 or 4 month period, we eventually got, you had to be able to do 20 to pass,
Right.
to go on to
Right.
the advanced stuff. So I was hitting about 25 when I got finished with schooling.
Did you ever get a message like the Japanese are coming or anything like that? You had to run and go, oh, look. Anything like that?
Yes.
Oh, tell me about it.
I was on Okinawa at the time, and we would occasionally get direct. Mostly it was encoded, but if they got busy, rather than go through the time of encoding it and sending it and decoding it and all that, they'd send it in the clear, and we'd see messages
Oh, really?
that needed to be passed on quickly.
Oh, wow. You remember one of the messages? It's like, bomb them now.
Again, for security reasons, I don't want to.
I love it.
I don't want to do anything on
Yeah,
tape.
yeah,
Okay. But yeah, there were some things that if you look back in history during '64 to '68, there was a lot going on.
Oh, yeah.
Asia, of course. Middle East, there was a lot going on. Russia was fairly quiet at the time, but there's in some of my duty stations we would cover the Middle East.
Right.
So that was fairly serious stuff.
I bet. So were you single when you were in the military?
Yeah.
What was that like, going to different places and you know, seeing the world, basically? I mean, that's what you're in the '60s,
Well,
traveling
yeah,
all over the world.
yeah. By the time I was 21, I had been around the world twice
Wow.
and fought a war. So
Yeah.
There's a certain amount of freedom that comes with being in the military.
Right.
Although there's still military discipline, and I was always on the wrong side of that.
Oh no,
Oh,
no,
yeah.
come on.
I had a problem with authority.
Oh really? I would have never guessed. I would never guess you get an Article 15 or two.
Borderline.
Oh, I got you. I got you.
Borderline, yeah,
Little remedial training then.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think I would have had a lot more trouble had I not been really good at my job.
Okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And they cut me some slack. I won some awards
Yeah.
for doing what I did, but I was always on that fine edge.
You're the edge. Did they yell at you, call you by your last name? What was your rank?
E5.
Oh, you made sergeant.
Yeah.
I love it. Love it. What was it like becoming a sergeant? That's a big deal, right?
In our group, it was because of the pay, but it wasn't because you were still doing what you did
Same
before.
thing, right.
In our group, E6, you moved up
Okay.
to a higher position of authority,
Right.
kind of like a foreman.
Right.
Okay. Everyone was an E4. So E5 wasn't that big a deal. E6, staff sergeant, was the first big step.
I got you. What was it like when you decided to get out? Was that scary?
No, I was ready. I was ready.
First sergeant was booting you out the door, it sounds like.
I had accomplished everything I wanted to
Okay.
do. Okay. I had gotten everything that I guess I expected out of the military. If I could have stayed in, but it was time to get out. I didn't think that there's anything else. I didn't see any change coming
Right.
because Vietnam was still rolling along, and the world wasn't changing that fast. The military back then wasn't changing that fast. So I was ready to move out, to do something else.
What'd you do after you got out?
I got out, and my mother had moved back to Ohio, so I came back to Ohio rather than Oklahoma. There weren't very many jobs in Oklahoma at the time.
Right.
The Army was really my ticket out of Oklahoma. So anyway, when I got out, there was a government program called Manpower Development, where they would take people like myself and put us through training, not college level or even junior college, but training.
Right.
And they did things like cook training, short order cook, that sort of thing, heating, ventilation, and air conditioning, and drafting. And I think there's a couple others. Well, I took drafting.
Okay.
Okay, because like when I went to work at 14, I worked in a service station garage.
Right.
So I was mechanically minded, so I took the drafting and graduated from that top of my class and ended up getting a job as a machine designer, entry level.
Right.
Had an aptitude for that, did real well. While I was doing that, I decided to go to night school, go to college nights. So I started about 1970, I started going night school, college. And it took me 7 years, but I ended up getting a bachelor's degree,
Yay.
going nights. And ended up with a full regular level engineering job.
That's awesome. So you designed
Machinery.
what kinds of machines? What would you design? What company were you working for?
Well, I started out working for a company called Federal Glass. They make tableware, glass tableware. And I designed their molds to form the glass and that sort of
Really?
thing. Yeah, yeah.
That's got to be fascinating.
Did a little bit of actual machine design then, but it was mostly molds.
Okay.
But after that, I started moving up the chain and doing more machine design. I did a lot of food grade liquid packaging equipment for dairies, water companies, like the gallon jugs of water and that sort of thing. And I designed automated machinery to fill these different containers.
Wow.
And then just kept moving up, and I did some automation, full production line designs, and that sort of thing.
Wow. That's in depth. You got to have a lot of knowledge about a lot of things to
Yeah.
put all that together.
Yeah, I was top of the line, we'll call it, in pneumatics design, electrical design, not electronics, electrical,
Right.
machine control, electrical machine controls, and that sort of thing. And of course, the mechanical side of it, pneumatics, hydraulics,
Right.
and all that sort of thing. So, yeah, when I was in induction heating at one time, doing induction heaters for car companies, where they would take a piece of what they call a billet, like an axle,
Right.
a blank axle,
Okay.
stick it in a heater and turn it into an axle going down this assembly line. So my last job in that was doing that. I did a full assembly line for a car company I won't mention, but you'd put a blank piece of steel in one end, and at the other end that came out as a finished truck axle.
Oh, wow. That's cool. That's
So
cool.
that was interesting. That was a high dollar
I bet.
production line. That was like a 2-year project.
I'll be dang. And your failure is the whole reason Edsels don't make cars no more.
I wasn't around then.
I love it.
I might have saved them. You never know.
I love it. I love it. What is
I did drive an Edsel.
Oh, did you?
Oh yeah.
Did you? Tell me, well, that's a good question. Tell me about your first car.
First car. Well, the first car that ran.
There you go.
My first car was a 40 Ford.
Okay.
It didn't run.
All right.
But it was the old V8 flathead
Yeah.
40 Ford. First car that ran was a 50 Pontiac.
Oh, wow.
Loved that car.
Yeah.
Straight 8 flathead. You could stand between the fender and the motor.
Big old boat. Big old boat. Did you ever get any automobile accidents or ever have a situation in a car that was scary?
Well, I raced for 13 years.
Really? Automobile racing?
I drove sports cars,
Okay.
generally open wheel, single seat.
Really?
Yeah.
So you work
So-
on them yourself
Oh
and
yeah,
build them yourself?
I build them myself, maintain them myself. There were times where I was going through an engine a week, kind of
No
thing.
way.
So I'd slap an engine together and go out racing and blow it up, and I'd come home and slap another one together.
So you got to have times where you were driving down the road and the tire fell off and you hit the wall or something crazy happened?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, I was out for morning practice at Mid-Ohio racetrack, and I was being stupid. I wasn't paying attention, and I lost it in the curve. And I went off the track with enough speed that the wheels never touched ground till I hit the wall.
Oh, wow.
So there wasn't anything, I'm going like this and I'm hitting the brake, and I look in the mirror and I see the wall came. I was going backwards at the time.
Wow.
And I saw the wall coming up. I said, this is going to hurt.
Oh, no.
And it did.
Ah. Did it destroy the car?
was repairable.
Yeah, good, good, good.
They were simple cars. There wasn't much to them.
So, you know, look, Mid-Ohio, that's a famous racetrack.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
what other places did you drive? Any other famous places?
Indianapolis Raceway Park,
Okay.
Black Hawk Farms up in northern Illinois, Nelson Ledges up by Cleveland, Ohio. Quite a few.
What's the most horsepower you've had that you've driven, that you've owned?
Well, the race car was only, it was maybe 70,
Oh, really? Okay, okay.
but it only weighed 500 pounds.
Right, right.
So it was capable of 130.
Wow. Wow.
So yeah, I was never big into street horsepower.
Okay.
I didn't see the point in it.
I got you.
You couldn't use it
Right,
anyway.
right, right,
so
right. Just a waste.
why
of
waste the money?
red light to red light stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's got to be really, really fun to strap the helmet on and climb in, and if you're a car driver, you end up at that level doing most of the work yourself, right? You don't have some pit crew around you that's.
No, there was, once in a while I'd have someone help, but
Yeah.
that was about it.
Yeah. Who would travel with you to the races and stuff?
Occasionally we would have someone to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you race live races, or just do time trials and stuff?
Oh no, we did
Live
races.
races?
Oh yeah.
Did you win a race?
No.
That was like me. When I was racing my NASCAR racing, and I was actually a professional race car driver. I never actually won one.
No, in sports car racing, the more money you have, the faster you go.
Of course,
So.
of course. What was relationships like? You know, personal relationships as you were coming up and in the Army. You know, when did you find love?
Well, I've always been, because of my background, I've always been a loner. So I never really developed friendships with people. Now, Dee lived, when we were in Ohio, she lived 2 houses down from us. So I knew her, I was comfortable, you know. Even though when we were in grade school, I used to throw rocks at her because she was an icky girl.
I know.
But yeah, we got back together after I got out of the Army. And
So y'all known each other almost your whole life then?
pretty much, yeah.
Oh, wow. She still lets you hang around anyway, huh?
She tolerates me.
She tolerates you. So what was it like when you know you guys got back together and started dating, and how was that early romance?
I didn't know he was the man.
Oh, so you kept secrets from her?
No, it just
Didn't even know.
didn't cross my mind to,
Right.
you know.
We didn't want that technically, we're not together then.
Yeah, we knew each other, but we weren't.
Knew each other.
I got you.
But it was fun, exciting, interesting. All those things that go along with your early years.
Right, yeah.
You know, with someone that you're planning on being with for a while.
Right.
Yeah, we've been married 54 years.
What did y'all do for fun when y'all were young? Y'all go dancing, or you know, how did
We
y'all
would.
spend time?
We did the bar scene once in a while, occasionally.
Occasionally.
Did a lot of camping, outdoorsy stuff.
Okay.
My late 20s were taken up pretty much all with going to school nights.
Right.
So we didn't do much in our early years of marriage. Then I got out of that and we did racing and did a lot of camping, clubbing, that sort of thing.
Did y'all have any big arguments?
Not really, not really.
How about kids?
We got a daughter.
Yeah.
Yeah, she popped in there somewhere. And
So brag on your daughter a little bit.
Well, she's in Birmingham now. How old is she now? 50.
She does not have her stuff together. So,
She's in her 50s, and I think she still thinks she's 20.
Amen. Amen. I get it. I get it. I get it. What was it like becoming a parent and raising children and going through those struggles? Was it easy? Was it hard? Where were you at during those days? Where were
Well,
you
that was in
living?
Ohio.
Yeah.
Looking back on it, I don't think it was that difficult.
Right.
But I had a lot of sense of responsibility, so if something went wrong, I just figured it was my job to fix it,
Right.
and it wasn't a big deal.
Right.
So I didn't feel a lot of stress over parenthood and that sort of thing. I was busy making a living,
Right.
going to school, making a living.
you chose to be responsible.
What?
Chose to be responsible.
Oh, yeah, well, I don't know whether I chose it or just accepted it.
Well, yeah.
Right. Right. It's neat. Responsible. You're the one that's able to respond to things. It
was my job.
Yeah. It's just, as a dad, that's what you do. What brought you from Ohio to Dothan, Alabama?
Weather.
So very few people say, I want better weather, let me go to Dothan, Alabama. It's not like known for the best weather in the world.
Well, when I hit retirement age, we started looking around, and she has relatives in Florida, so we considered Florida. And I personally don't care for Florida all that much. Now, they're further south, they're down mid-state, so. And I wasn't impressed with the Florida mystique.
Right.
So we started out looking in Texas. We wanted to be south.
Right.
We wanted to be somewhere along the Gulf. Not on the Gulf, but along the Gulf. So we said we wanted to be within 100 miles. We drew a line over the map around the Gulf, and we started looking in Texas. So we went down to Texas and looked around the Houston area. And I wasn't impressed with it.
Right.
Big, crowded, urban, a lot of concrete. Traffic, they've got 8 lanes going north out of Houston, and it's packed the whole time. So that's not where we were looking. Yeah, they got 2 circles, two outer belts.
Right. Right.
And to get anywhere even halfway suburban, if you want to call it that, you got to be outside the second one. I didn't want that. So we looked at Mississippi, and there was, other than Natchez, Louisiana area, there wasn't much in Mississippi.
Right.
You had Biloxi, but we wanted to be within 100 miles,
Right.
but we didn't want to be on the Gulf. And we looked at the only part of Louisiana was New Orleans, which I didn't care for. We've been there several times,
Right.
and I like New Orleans, but I wouldn't live there.
Right.
And then we looked at Alabama, and we drew the 100-mile circle, and we were looking across there, and Mobile was on the Gulf, so we didn't want Mobile. And I was looking across there, and I saw a little town with an outer belt around it. So I said, aha, big city, right? So, and it was Dothan. So, and she actually had relatives here. So we ended up coming down, looking around. I liked it. We found a place we liked, so we came down here.
Wow. Have you been in the same place ever since?
Yeah.
Yep.
How many years you been here now?
Well, we bought in '08,
Oh, wow. That's
so
awesome.
we've been here 16 years.
Yay. That is really cool.
We don't move around much. We're, all my life I've been committed to whatever it is I'm doing,
Amen to that.
So,
Tell me about your music. You play a lot of different instruments.
well, back in '68, I think it was, shortly after I got out of the Army, some friends of mine, we were out drinking one night. And the one guy owned a band, or had a band. So he said, "You ought to come play with us." I don't play nothing, When I was in high school, I used to mess around with the guitar, but that was nothing. So we were out drinking, and he said, "Let's go into this music shop." So he said, "We need a bass player." So we looked up on the wall, and there's some basses up there. There was one up there that looked like a fiddle. And he said, "You ought to get that, play that. If you get good with it, come in the band." So I yeah, what the hell, So I bought the whole setup, amplifier, instrument, all the stuff that goes with it, $60.
Oh, wow.
So that's how I got seriously started with music,
It was with the bass.
with the bass.
And did you end up joining that band?
No. No, that kind of fell by the wayside.
Yeah.
But I played, and if someone played the piano, we'd get together and that sort of thing. Nothing really serious.
Right.
I'd pick it up and play it, or I'd pick up a guitar and play it and that sort of thing. It wasn't until we came down here till I got serious
Oh, really?
with it. Yeah.
You're very much an asset to our ensemble with your bass playing. We definitely enjoy it. Tell me about your spirituality. And they say there's no atheists in foxholes, and you're here at the Spiritual Enrichment Center. Tell me about that.
I don't know that statement is true, although when you have rockets and mortars coming down around your ears, you kind of, you're maybe, you might need a little help.
Right, yeah, right.
Just cover all the bases.
No, might as well throw a prayer up. It doesn't take too much time.
Yeah. But shortly before we came down here, I got involved with a Buddhist monk up in Ohio, and I had never been I'd never been religious. I saw a lot of things wrong with organized religion. So, but I got involved with this Buddhist monk, and he taught me a lot. He kind of set me on the path of self-discovery, which is what the basic Buddhist thought is, that you are responsible for yourself.
Right.
So he kind of set me on that path, and when we came down here, we tried some different churches, and it just didn't work out. So we ended up coming down here, and we've been here since, well, we became members in 12. It's 12 because I still have my membership card up on the desk in the office. But we played here with Tommy for probably 2 years before that, so we've been here since 2010.
What now? Okay, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. As we get older and we go through, life, there are physical limitations that come about. There's scares. There's medical issues. I know recently you had something that sent you to the doctor in a hurry. Tell me about that. How does that work with you?
Whenever I get into a situation like that, I just sit back and relax
Right.
and let the medical people do their medical thing.
Right. Right.
I've had heart issues for probably 25 years, so it's not a surprise.
Okay.
And in fact, I've got to go for a stress test sometime next week, maybe,
Right.
because they're seeing some things in there that they don't feel comfortable with.
Right.
But anyway, we went through 2 years ago. I had a CAT scan for, I don't remember why now, some issue. Doctor sent me for a CAT scan. And he called me up a couple days later and called me in for an office visit. He says, we've got some bad news. He says, you have pancreatic cancer, which is 90% fatal. So they were going to do some further testing. But while we were going through, before we did the further testing, I was going through all the end of life internal discussions.
Right.
Okay. So eventually I reconciled myself that, a year, maybe two. And I just got comfortable with it because there wasn't nothing I could do about it.
Right.
So, and as it turned out, it was benign. So
Yeah.
still there, but not a problem.
Wow. Wow. It's interesting to think about our future physical demise of our egoic body and our transition into another world that we know nothing about, but we all kind of agree that's there somehow.
Mm-hmm.
As we start to close out the interview and think about our time together, is there anything we've missed or hadn't talked about? Remember, I'm trying to make this so that your loved ones, maybe your daughter or your grandkids one day will look back on this and say, there's Grandpa, or we all have those thoughts. Is there any wisdom or thoughts you'd like to impart?
I guess just loyalty, I think, is important.
I'm into that.
Stability,
Yeah.
even though, there's always times when you get a little flaky. Integrity, I think, is the big thing. Of course, honesty is part of that, but you've got to have some integrity. You can't run around cheating people and intentionally doing bad things. I mean, we all do bad things.
By mistake.
By mistake or in the heat of the moment kind of
right,
thing.
Right.
But you just got to be a moral person. The Buddhist tradition is all about that. SEC is all about that. I think the one thing we missed, and I don't know why I didn't mention it, was the biking.
Yeah, talk to me about that.
I've got, since we've been in Dothan, off and on since '08, I bought my first Harley, and I put 70,000 miles on it since we've been here.
Well, that's a lot of miles on a motorcycle.
Well, I had 100,000 before I came down here on
Okay.
Japanese bikes.
Oh, really? Okay.
So I've got 170,000 lifetime.
Wow.
Still riding.
Yeah.
And that's part of the loner attitude, I guess, if you want to
Okay.
call it.
You like to put your leather on and
Not
put,
so much that as just, which seems kind of strange for someone that used to race cars, but I don't feel comfortable in cars.
okay.
Okay, I'd much rather be out on two wheels,
Okay.
on a back road in the woods, or three.
Right.
He gets itchy if he isn't.
Yeah, I very rarely will I go 2 days without riding.
Really?
He was out today.
Did you ride in the cold the past few days?
Yes,
Every day. That's love it. I love it.
I've ridden down to 10 below.
Wow.
I won't do that again.
So what?
That was
So,
not smart.
so riding gives you freedom, right? It gives you wind in the hair. Or what does it? What does it provide for you?
It gives me control.
Okay.
Okay, you can see everything. You know everything. You know when there's people around you. You know when there's not. You know when there's animals around you. You know if there's a kid behind you.
Right.
You know you don't back over him,
Right.
kind of thing. Although no, never mind. I was told I ran over someone the other day, but the motor wasn't even on. I was just pushing it back by hand, and I bumped someone. I guess I don't know. But you have control.
Right.
You know, you have responsibility. You have loyalty to the bike, if you will,
I love it.
to not break it.
Right. Yeah. So have you ever been in a scary position on your motorcycle? You ever laid it down?
Only going backwards.
Okay, that's a unique story.
Well, we were at a campground that had a gate that you had to punch a number into to get the gate to open.
Right.
So it had been raining. It was uphill, and there was light gravel on it. Okay, but very light gravel. So we stopped at the gate, and I was going to get off. I had to get off to punch the number in. And it just started sliding backwards
Right.
because there was mud under the gravel. It just wouldn't hold. It just started sliding
Every day.
backwards. So we're sliding down the hill, and we had two choices. We could drop off into a 30-foot ditch, or I could lay it down.
Y'all were on the bike together?
Yeah.
Oh, wow,
Yeah.
fun.
Didn't like it.
Of course you didn't like it. Yeah. Yeah.
But no, I've never been down at speed.
He went that twice. Same place.
Didn't learn the first time.
Yes.
So let's close this out. Look into that camera right there and say your full name and date of birth.
James Ray Martin, 12/30/46.
I love it. Thank you. Can I get a big hug?
All right. Oh.
Oh, I love it. Well, thank you. And Dee, you're next. You know that, right? Of course, we got to. Yeah.
I don't want to.
Well, you don't have to. You don't have to.
I don't want to.
We won't make you.
Get up there and
Test
tell them
one.
about your biker chick days.
Yeah.
Oh, I bet. I bet
mean, we've been
you got a
riding
few
for